Leading up to today's North Korean summit in Singapore, President Trump said he doesn't have to prepare for the meeting because it's all about attitude. Well, it's nice to see that President Trump has brushed up on the diplomatic strategies of the brilliant political philosopher Tyra Banks. It seems like Trump has been channeling his inner Tyra a lot lately. Have you noticed? Take a look at this video.
What's up, everybody? Hi. Hey, girl. So I just... It's a lot of hey girls. Hey, girl.
We also got our hands on some other tips that President Trump has taken from Tyra Banks' Guide to International Diplomacy. The first of which is make economic sanctions as loose as a flirty infinity scarf. Next, Coco Chanel said, before you leave the house, look in the mirror and take one thing off. And before you negotiate with a dictator, look in the mirror and make sure you have no KFC stains. And finally, when making a request for nuclear disarmament, remember to smile with your eyes. The Trump Report starts now.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh, that's right. It ain't nothing but a G7 thing, baby. Welcome to the Trump Report. Special thanks to our friend Tamara Brown for writing that piece at the top of the show, which she's not here to appreciate the glory and the accolades. And for those of you listening on iTunes, you're going to have to just trust that the visuals were funny with it. But you can always find us on YouTube. We are here on Summit Day. It finally happened. I can't wait to talk to Scott Moore. We're going to trade our commemorative coins.
Yes.
I've got the one with Kim Jong-un, walking towards Trump. And you've got the one where he's walking away. So we're going to trade them a little bit later in the show. But I'm Christian Blatt. You can always count on my co-host to my left, your right, Chelsea Galicia.
Hello.
And back from a very stressful vacation.
I know, it was so stressful.
The one, the only, Brooks Elise. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm so happy to be back.
And we're happy to have you back. Well, actually, it's probably not true. You'd probably rather still be on vacation, right?
You know what? It really was stressful, so I'm happy to be back.
Yeah.
This is my comfort zone, so...
And of course, at the far end of the desk, the color-coordinated, my twin in maroon, Scott Moore.
I got the memo.
Yes, you got the memo. The ladies did not. And at some point after the show, Brooke and I will have to talk to you guys what it was like to be at Drexel Hurd's wedding, because our invite lost in the mail, Brooke.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's all right.
That's okay, Drex.
Anyway, that was the social event of the weekend. Only slightly
of the season.
Yeah, of the season. Yeah, but see, slightly overshadowed, I think, in some circles by the sit down between President Trump and the other guy, the tubby guy from North Korea, Kim Jong-un. Although when you're saying the tubby guy, you have to be specific as to which one you're referring to.
Right. Just like when you say dictator, you have to specify.
But Fox did
I
not.
was going to say,
Fox
did you hear
did
that
not.
Fox News had
So
to...
you have to be specific with that as well.
They apparently identified President Trump as a dictator. Right?
You didn't hear it?
No, I did hear it.
When he was getting like off the plane and the narration was the two dictators are preparing to meet.
It was great.
A moment of
If
truth.
there was
The
ever a
truth.
Freudian
One
slip,
time,
right?
the truth comes out on Fox News.
But I think that there's a lot of spin that is coming out of the meeting. But I'll start with you, Scott, and we'll work our way back towards me. What do you think as you saw the coverage and what you've been able to read on what is no doubt a busy Tuesday work day? What are your thoughts, your sort of immediate reactions to the summit?
I think it was a lot of fluff. There's a lot of things that we'd have to unpack here if we really want to get into it. But my overview top line is that it was a lot of fluff. There's good and bad to it. More bad than good. So.
Oh, I'd want to hear.
Just as far as the specifics and everything, there's just a lot that I would get into.
That there was no specifics?
Yes. And the fact that you're basically equalizing Kim Jong-un and North Korea to a level that is something that they wanted. So that, of course, they've already gotten more out of this than
the
rest
pushback
of
would be,
world.
well, what did he really do? Because he said he's going to invite him to the White House, like that's how he equalized him.
No, just the fact that he met with him. The fact that he met with him and that he brought it to a level that he's at an equal footing to the rest of the world is a as a photo op and an optics
As
that
though he were legitimate.
yes, that you're legitimizing
dictators.
a very murderous, repressive regime.
Would the counter to that be, well, Obama did it in Cuba?
No, because the thing is that it's unpacking a lot of stuff where Cuba's it's a whole different situation here between North Korea and it's basically if he was to meet with Assad in Syria and things like that, where you're meeting with really dangerous, repressive dictators that really should have had that type of notoriety, where we've had a lot of that's what I'm saying, you're playing it off. Where then Cuba, we've had a very failed embargo for 60 years that has not worked, and instead of trying to turn them away, we should be embracing Cuba and the Cuban people to help bring them into an open, democratic, free society in the Western Hemisphere, where meeting with this dictator in a neutral place was not going to do that for the North Korean people.
I mean, I guess it could be argued, well, maybe it could lead to that, but I'm not sure I'd be the one making the argument. Personally, I just feel myself playing a little devil's advocate.
Well, I just didn't know, Chelsea, that you were such a fan of Kim Jong-un. So it's welcome to hear. Yes.
Can I
do
say
you
something?
Do you have a little crush on Kim Jong-un, Brooke?
No, I don't have a crush on this one. Do you have a
still
crush
there
on
for
a lot
Chip.
of men? Yeah,
Your heart is still
But
with
can
Chip.
I say something really obscene about this whole thing?
Well, as we've established on this show, as long
That I often
as
do.
long as you don't use the C word, yes.
Yes. Well, I think that Trump got stormied in a way because he gave up the goods before getting anything back from Kim Jong-un during this summit. You know,
Well, there definitely was no money shot from anything that we saw. If you want to use
he's
the Stormy
saying
Daniels
he's saying
lingo.
that he's, you know, going to take away the militarization of the U.S. in North Korea, and Kim Jong-un hasn't really given him anything truly yet. Kind of like Stormy gave it up, and Trump said, you know, I'm going to put you on The Apprentice, and then it never happened. And I think that that's what we're going to end up seeing. Kim Jong-un has been saying for a very long time, including his father, that they're going to denuclearize, and it hasn't happened. And I don't think it's going to happen. It's been a false, you know, here, let me give you this. It's kind of a carrot dangle, and I don't think it's going to happen.
To be fair, it's called The Celebrity Apprentice, so she should have known that she
Right,
wasn't
Celebrity
gonna be on it.
Apprentice.
Yeah. No.
What if there had been a porn apprentice?
By the way,
That should be a great spin-off.
I don't know why there wouldn't be.
Giuliani could host that.
Is Ron Jeremy still alive? Would he be able to host? Because I actually don't know if he's still with us. But anyway,
He is. He was going to.
Pretty quick answer there. Are you in the Hedgehog fan club? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, of course. So of
No,
course
who
I
is
know.
it?
I mean,
In all honesty, yeah, exactly.
I'm lost, but okay.
All right, so Brooke's gonna pretend she's not
yeah,
about
exactly.
porn
Just gonna be all
of a sudden.
innocent. Of
First,
course.
I'm like, can I be obscene?
Who's the one
and
who
now
brought
I'm
up porn?
lost.
Yeah, let me talk about porn. But see,
you get what I'm saying,
I
don't
get
you?
what you're saying, but I mean, according to President Trump, they met for about 5 hours, and Kim Jong-un signed, and there's the quotes, a very comprehensive agreement for complete denuclearization after only 5 hours.
And he said this in the past, and there have also not been any specifics. No specific like checkpoints, no specific what's going to be denuclearized. We don't even know the full arsenal that Kim Jong-un has. Trump claims to know, but we really don't. We don't have any specifics.
Well, that's why I said it was a bunch of fluff, because there was nothing specific that came out of it, and it put him in
Chelsea, President Trump says he trusts Kim Jong-un, a man who not long ago he called Rocket Man, which I still contend was an awful, you know, he's had a couple of good nicknames, but that's still one of the worst ones. But anyway, he trusts him. So why shouldn't he trust Kim Jong-un?
I think he trusts him because on some level he knows them. I think they're kind of like soulmates. And let me explain what I mean.
Well, I mean, Kim Jong-un did say...
I get what you're saying.
Kim Jong-un did say that he wanted
That's why Trump gave it up.
Well, Kim Jong-un did say he wanted some McDonald's at, you know, there in North Korea. So they obviously have that in common.
That and the fact that I think that both Kim Jong-un and Trump were liked because of their dad. And
yes, that's true.
people around them really have no choice but to like them. And I think that they know that. And it's really lonely, and I don't think somebody could have a self-esteem, a solid self-esteem, knowing that people only like them or cheer for them, as Trump was calling it, fervently, because they're afraid they will die if they don't cheer loudly enough.
Yeah, but in the case of Donald Trump, he's far better known than his father ever was. I would say Kim Jong-un is definitely more of like...
I still think that that Trump and Kim Jong-un know that they are liked for their money and their power.
And by the way,
and they have to prove themselves.
And both of their dashing good looks. They're two of the most handsome men on the planet.
Okay, I was in a very serious analysis here.
I think it's more about that they're both so grotesquely narcissistic that's why they
that's
also
what I'm
connect.
Yeah.
Because their narcissism runs so deep that they're like, yep, I see you, like you and I.
Before, narcissism is one level. The other is having nobody like them. And Kim Jong-un liked, I think, almost to be hated on by Trump because somebody had the balls to hate on him and then turn around and be nice to him. Makes him feel like, this person really likes him because this person doesn't have to like him.
It's definitely the old analogy that I guess won't exist on playgrounds in the Me Too era, which is the idea that, you pull the pigtails of the girl that you like. And in this case, Kim Jong-un was the one with the pigtails, which, by the way, if we could get somebody to do it. You know what? For next week, Marissa, could we get Kim Jong-un and pigtails? I think that's what we would like to see. And when we switch topics, we'll show a fun picture for this week. But anyway, and I think Kim Jong-un was like, somebody's paying attention to me, finally. Obama never tweeted at me.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's the
He
attention.
George W. Bush.
Yes, he legitimized him as someone
who's
equal
not a
to
murderous
Yes.
like dictator.
And
they
then
both
when
need to be
asked
flattered. And
when Trump was asked, well, did you ask him about the way that he is towards his own people that he claims or you claim he thinks he loves? Well, yeah, but that's just what he saw, as in to say he saw that kind of brutality growing up at the hands of his father, so he has, I guess, no choice but to continue in that vein. I think that was the explanation that I heard.
It's akin to when I forget who asked Trump about Putin and how Putin has murdered people and how he's treated his people, and he's said basically, well, a lot of people have murdered other people. There are lots of bad people. And he it's the whole, there are good people on both sides.
Yeah, well,
type deal
also,
that Trump
and
takes.
Trump just wants to know, when do I get a chance to murder some people, because I think that there's a list probably of a few people. Scott, one of the things that Trump has said is that the U.S. South Korean military exercises will end because they were provocative to the North. This came as a surprise to South Korea. Is this kind of indicative of the level that we're operating with in terms of international diplomacy here, that the country that's already your friend, you're just like, yeah, but this, we're going to just kind of push you aside for, I was going to say the prettier girl, but the girl that's going to get you better headlines, I guess.
that's what I was going to say. It's sort of like, this is my new friend who's now cool and is going to give me all the attention, and we're going to do all this great stuff, and who cares, because these are my other friends here, and they're just going to put up with it because they still, have no other choice, really. And that's sort of what it is. It's like, okay, we'll get to with the G7, but it is sort of like that. And again, it's a dangerous place to be, because.
But I kind of like the move, not because I think it's a good strategic move.
No, I'm just saying a dangerous place to start going with what North Korea and everything, and then turning your back on South Korea and Japan and the areas that are really those allies are going to need our help, which he again is not being like, well, it's not our problem anymore, it's 9,000 miles away.
Does it really, and I'm sure that there are people in the military who are going to say, yes, it does it really require that much and that level of training and that level of expense of training that we're doing all the time? And I know that Trump's talking about it in terms of its economic cost is probably just an excuse. But I kind of like the excuse just because I am generally in favor of scaling back our military around the world.
No, I'm in favor of that. I'm just saying from the perspective of South Korea, who needs our help and support because of the fact that they know that they're only 70 miles from the border, that if anything gets lobbed over to them, that Seoul, the 10 million people are basically right there, knowing that they're that close to danger. and leaving them to kind of fend for themselves makes them feel uneasy. I'm not saying that I think that I agree with doing the exercise, because I agree with you. I think we should be paring back. But again, you have to do it for the right reasons and not do it for the wrong reasons, and not leave your allies that you have been working with for the past 65 years.
Right.
And leave them
And it makes me
in a
nervous that the
dangerous spot.
people barely pushing for this scale back is not just North Korea, but it's also China and
That's
Russia.
what I'm saying. It's the people that you
Exactly,
don't
and there's a
necessarily
reason
want,
for
and there's a
that.
reason for that. Exactly.
And
so
also, even if we're saving money, which would be great, and I also am all for
Absolutely.
demilitarization of a lot of places, that's not the way you negotiate. You don't automatically say, okay, I'm going to give you something. You need to ensure that something's going to be gotten in return. And
I
we
think
don't
Trump
know,
could say, well,
we don't know
I
that
did
we're
say
gonna
I'm
get
going to scale
anything.
back, but then he didn't deliver on his deal, so I'm rescaling up militarization. I don't think he's going to do anything that can't be easily reversed. And then I wonder,
see.
he did leave sanctions in place, although I wonder if when he went to take him to see the limo, if he was like, I'm going to send you one of these full of cheeseburgers or something like that.
Just imagine how many cheeseburgers you could get into the
But I just wonder if it, on paper, the sanctions will stay, but Trump will send him gifts. I don't know, maybe with Dennis Rodman or something.
Who was there, by the way? He was sent there. I think it was like a marijuana Bitcoin, and I'm kind of glad I don't remember the name. Okay, well there you go. Now we got the free plug in there. Yeah, they sent him there, and there's. If you want to watch some compelling television, he was in Singapore.
Actually there?
He was in Singapore.
Okay, I didn't know
and
that.
they talked to him on CNN this morning.
So when Cuomo
And-
talked to him, he was in Singapore as
yeah,
well?
and he was very emotional.
He was.
So
I know,
if you
it's-
want to see that Chris
I
Cuomo
think it might have
interview-
been all of the alcohol.
I do feel like I'm.
You mean a lifetime full of alcohol? I doubt that he'd had any this morning. But he, of course, I want to know who got Dennis Rodman the "Make America Great Again" hat, because I feel like he didn't have it already. But I don't
Clearly his homie Trump.
know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how tight they are. What were you going to say, Scott?
No, I was gonna say I think if I guess it was 5 years ago, whenever I was filling in and doing the Celebrity Apprentice here at AfterBuzz.
Wow, look at you.
I would say I would never, in a bajillion gazillion years, it feels like an alternative reality that we have Donald Trump as president, and he's getting advice from Kim Kardashian, and Dennis Rodman is over there.
Practically as our ambassador.
I am like this. It just feels like an alternative reality that I never would have guessed
it's
that could have
really-
been a truth in any.
In more ways than one, it's a
crazy.
tragedy that Joan Rivers is no longer with us.
It is.
Because she was a Celebrity Apprentice winner.
Yes.
So just imagine the sort of decision she... Just
We
think
need
of
her humor more than
just
ever right
think
now.
of who she would ask President Trump to pardon. Just a lot of fashion victims, basically. Before I'm going to ask you all a specific question. It was posed by the editorial board of the Washington Post, a.k.a. fake news. And I will read just a... well, it's a long paragraph, but I think that they took the time to write it, and I think it really sums it up best. The Singapore summit was, without question, a triumph for Kim Jong-un and his North Korean regime. A dictator who has ordered the murder of his own family members and who oversees a gulag comparable to those of Hitler and Stalin was able to parade on the global stage as a legitimate statesman, praised by the President of the United States as very talented and worthy of trust. President Trump offered Mr. Kim a major concession, the suspension of U.S. military exercises in South Korea, and spoke of his wish to withdraw U.S. troops from the country. There's a lot more. You can read at the Washington Post. I think that very succinctly points to, even if he had gotten some concrete things as opposed to the fluff that Scott's talking about, this is a tremendous victory for Kim Jong-un, because even if you're viewed as like, oh, he's, I don't know, half an inch more legitimate. Well, it's like, well, that's, he was pretty far away from it. What do you think, Chelsea? Do you think that this was a clear victory for #Team Un?
No, well,
His last name's actually Kim, but Un sounded funnier to me. Anyway, go.
Probably is. I don't know what's in that man's mind, but I can't imagine that he sees that this was negative for him in any way. I think this was also one of the ways that we got the truth from Trump. I'm not sure if you heard, but he apparently has not slept for like 25 hours straight.
I did hear that, yes.
And so he let the truth slip when he said in a press conference, this went all great, it's all fantastic, but I could be wrong about him. I could be wrong about this whole thing. This is practically a verbatim quote here. He said, I could be standing here before you in 6 months and saying I was wrong. Well, actually, no, I don't think I would. I don't say things like that. I would probably come up with some kind of excuse. And I said,
There we go.
the truth serum.
Yeah.
Look, he was very honest in that moment that he's like, you know what, I'm not going to tell you that I'm wrong. But
So
I could be wrong, but I won't tell you
I feel
that
like
I'm
that
wrong.
was a major win for all of us who were like, you guys, people, Trump, what?
Does that feel like a major win, really? Like, when you think about the way you feel about this president, you really feel like that's a major win?
Well, it is something,
something.
that I have
It's true.
Yeah,
It's
something
really
to grasp.
Nugget.
believed
Yes.
thoroughly that he lies but then never corrects himself, or makes mistakes and never corrects himself, and he just explained why, because he just doesn't admit mistakes. So it does feel like a victory for me personally.
Or admit the truth.
Yeah.
Ever. Lives in a
Brooke,
false
do you
reality.
see this as a big victory for Kim Jong-un, or is it possibly a victory for someone else that maybe Dennis
It is
Rodman?
absolutely a victory for Kim Jong-un. I liken it to the outsider in The Breakfast Club. You guys have seen that. The guy who's like
Oh,
the
you
outsider.
mean that really old
Yeah.
movie, The Breakfast Club?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a classic, I think. I think it's on Turner Classic
You
Movies.
know, no one ever accepts him because he's such a loser, and he's like always trying to I don't know, put the school on fire or
You're
whatever.
speaking of
And
the
then
great Judd Nelson.
Judd
Yes,
Nelson, and
yes.
then finally at the end, the redhead, I'm so bad with
Molly
names.
Ringwald.
Molly Ringwald gives him her earring. That was Trump saying, you know what? Here's my earring. You're a part of the team now. You're legitimate. It's gonna be okay.
When it's the
Even
G9,
though your
it's gonna be
dad
'cause
didn't
North Korea
accept
was-
you and beat you up, it's gonna be okay. You're a part of the team now.
You know, thinking of John Hughes comparisons, Scott, do you think that to get ready for the meeting, that President Trump watched 16 Candles and studied the work
It's
of Long
quite possible.
Yes,
work
that's true. I wouldn't
of
put it
Long
past
Duck
him.
Dong?
You know he has 20 TVs
just-
on Air Force One.
To just feel like, oh, it's going to be like talking to Long Duck Dong. Do you think that that is what President Trump was prepared for? Which is the character's
Yes.
name, not a reference
Yes.
to porn
Yeah,
from earlier.
exactly.
Although that's not
Exactly
important.
right.
Sure.
Scott, in what ways do you feel like this could? So, sure, we're pretty much in agreement that this is a victory for Kim Jong Un. And oh my gosh, thank you,
Marissa is just
Marissa.
on it.
Yes, she
She's so
is.
quick. I love it.
Unfortunately, one of the most famous Asians in film in the 80s, he and the guy who played Short Round in Indiana Jones and
Yep.
the Temple of Doom, who was also in the Goonies. Unfortunately, it's kind of it. And you know, my wife's Chinese and her family, and they were just glad to see an Asian person in a movie. I asked them about this.
What about the
movie.
Lees? Like Bruce Lee and...
That's not in it. It's not in the 80s.
Oh,
Besides,
never
that's
mind.
genre films. Those are.
Oh,
kung fu
okay, I'm
and
dating
whatnot.
myself completely wrong. Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, so what I was going to ask Scott, and this, look at you getting Short Round too.
I know,
I
so
love
cute.
Short
So
Round.
I do too.
Yeah, it's my least favorite Indiana Jones movie, but still,
Now I'm thinking about Kim Jong-un when he was little. He could have been a fat, cute little
I
baby.
was going to say just
Yeah.
a lot fatter version of that. But so Scott, this is clearly a win for Kim Jong Un. Who do you think it's how is it going to help him? Like, who is going to maybe be like, all right, you know what? Now maybe we'll also sit down with him. Is Bashar Assad? Are they going to try and put the Legion of Doom together, maybe, or who's going to
Yeah,
sit down with
exactly.
him now?
No, I mean, I think it's just, like we were saying earlier, it just brings out to legitimizes him and his regime now, and probably gives even China more of an opportunity to say, well, great, now we can go in and start doing trade with them again. Help
Keep
bolster,
doing trade with them, but just
but
we'll
even
do
more,
it out in the open
yes,
now.
a little bit more
I'm sure
bolstered.
Russia's in the waiting line.
And Russia, yeah, so you have a lot of places now that will be feel more confident to be like, well, we met with Trump, let's give them a little more economic aid and help bolster them and send troops and people there to help protect them as well.
Can I ask you all a question? I don't know if you saw that on the joint statement released by both of them. It says, President Trump, and then it says chairman of the People's Democratic
Yes.
Republic
Yes.
of Korea.
Yes, that
That's
is
the
the
official
name of North
name.
Korea.
Yeah.
That's the name of the
So,
country.
okay, but that doesn't specify North Korea. So are
You're
we
right.
now?
They don't call it that.
No, they don't. They don't call it that. They
Yeah.
themselves call it that. That's how they
the
refer to the
Democratic
country.
Republic
Yes.
of Korea
I'm like,
being
'cause
separate from.
Democratic-
Did we just accidentally
I know.
say
No,
that
no.
Kim Jong Un is like
Yeah,
the
no.
chairman of the entire Korean Peninsula?
No, but that's how they
Okay,
refer
just
to
checking.
themselves as a country.
Okay, I couldn't be the only one that didn't know that. Thank you for clarifying.
That's all right. I mean, I think there's, look, we all are familiar with Chairman Mao. We can think of Kim Jong Un as Chairman Chow. It's not really that funny, but it sounded funny enough in my head. It's because he's fat. Anyway,
We've got so many jokes
I know.
today.
what are you gonna do?
Because it's also laughable.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because there is a comment in the chat from someone that's just identified as Daryl. This summit with Trump and Rodman is ridiculous. It's annoying. I love that it's annoying. The fact that Rodman and Trump are involved, I guess, is fairly ridiculous and annoying. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
just imagine what
bit...
the news would be without it.
I could tell you, we would all be mourning the loss of net neutrality.
But we don't have time for the other thing I know you want to talk about. We'll get to it. I'll save you some time at the end because
and the voting restrictions in Ohio.
What we do need to talk about is the title of this episode. If we want to talk about some of Marissa's great graphic work, we do indeed have the identification that it ain't nothing but a G7 thing.
I love that.
Now I get it.
Yes.
God, you guys are so
Finally,
creative.
some of my music too playing at the beginning. Seriously.
You know that song is also like 20 years old, right? So
Yeah,
so
that's fine. I'm just saying I'm a hip hop connoisseur.
You're not as old as me, but you're old now, as I guess.
You know I'm old.
Yeah,
You appreciate it.
But anyway, so I did want to talk a little bit about this, and I think that I'll start with Chelsea. How do you think the G7 summit went, Chelsea?
Can we talk about how he's going to probably not oppose marijuana? I mean, it just was a shit show. But it gives Trump supporters exactly what they want, the appearance that we are strong and standing up for ourselves and we're not going to be pushed around anymore. And the picture of him standing or sitting there with his arms crossed and all the leaders like towering over him, looking down on him like they're about to, reach into his throat and pull out his tongue was just exactly...
Which is a reference to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Well done. You're tying it all together. I love that.
Yes. It was all part of the plan. It was all part of the plan.
But that gives, Trump's supporters the look that they were going for. And it just... Because I don't think most people understand the true complexity of trade, you can turn it into an argument for either way. Either that it was a disaster for us or that it was good for us. When Trump is saying that there's just this ginormous trade deficit with Canada, but then the U.S. Trade Office is saying actually in 2017 there was an $8.4 billion surplus. This stuff is just not making sense. So I think what's going to happen is that the other countries are going to figure out a way around us. They're just not going to deal with us, and what's going to happen over time, over the course of years, is that as fewer countries depend on us, we lose our standing in the world, and it's going to be something that happens slowly but surely. And it looks like we're doing this to stand up for ourselves, but really we're just giving people, other countries, and incentives to start looking for other partnerships around the world and avoid us because we're just too unreliable and throw hissy fits.
Yeah, I think that...
And back out of deals.
It could... Yeah, well, that's the thing is you get to a point where you're like, all right, this is all agreed upon, and then after the fact, it's like, psych, I'm not into this. Look, I think that's the... Yes, exactly, definitely like a true G. Brooke, I wanted to focus on the fact that President Trump... accused Justin Trudeau of being dishonest and weak. And Marissa, if you can find for us, just go ahead and do a Google image search on Justin Trudeau and eyebrow. It is tough to look strong. Picture. You know why you don't like that picture? Because it seems to reveal that he glues on thicker eyebrows, and he was so flustered that it fell down into his eye. And
I totally think that picture is Photoshopped, just so you know.
But there's video of it. I think.
Really?
Those are just strong eyebrows. As someone who has strong eyebrows, I can definitely applaud those. But it's tough to come off as
Do you know
difficult.
How many women are buying stuff to put on their eyebrows to make them look like that?
To look like Justin Trudeau?
I mean,
well, just the thicker.
Women want a strong brow. Yeah.
Really? I thought that they wanted
take it from Tyra and Trump.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Marissa, right down there is the video. Actually, if you scroll down, it's that's just a still image, but down below on that link, I saw it. It was there, I swear. Anyway.
I thought an alt-righty had altered that picture, that's all.
Yeah, there's a couple. There's a few.
We really cannot have reduced ourselves
I know you're talking about eyebrows.
My point is that
but we have. Okay.
I don't find him to be particularly strong, and you just got played by a guy that everybody thinks is an idiot. You're not responding well to Donald Trump. It's almost better to go out there and just be like, what can I say? I mean, he's Trump. I mean, like, no questions, and
It's
just maybe throw the podium over. Just be like, yeah, of course that we got played. You're all getting played. I don't know. What do you think about the interaction between Trump and Trudeau?
What do I think about it? I mean, I think it's classic Trump. I think it's classic Trump always playing to his base, because Trump, the way that he plays to his base, his base is full of fear, lack thereof, need. Oh, someone's taking something that we don't have. This trade deficit that's occurring is all because of Canada, blah, 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 blah. And so I think it's just classic Trump. And I do think that Trudeau, anytime he plays into Trump at all, he is lowering himself. But at the same time, sometimes you need to respond. I mean, what more can you say? I mean, like, I'm not surprised by it at all. Of course we're beefing with Canada. Who has Trump not, like, had beef with? I mean, just check off
Except
another
Russia.
country.
Well, yeah, and we'll get to Russia in a minute. I mean, yeah, that's the thing is that, it's easy to basically stare down Canada because, they're so polite. They'll probably let you, rough them up. They might even let you kick them down the stairs. They'll be like, that's really tough, eh? But, they'll probably be about it.
Trump's been jealous of Trudeau from the get-go.
Of course, just like he's
from
jealous
day
of Obama.
one, because he's handsome and smart and eloquent.
Just
Yeah,
like
but they're
Obama.
Actually understands how governmental affairs work. So
But their fast food isn't as good as ours, so I don't know how jealous he is. Maybe he's jealous of the person, but maybe not the station in life. Scott, do you think it's possible that President Trump psyched himself up for the meeting, much like he was watching 16 Candles before the summit? Do you think that he was watching the great film South Park, Bigger, Longer, Uncut, and just cycling through Blame Canada again and again, and he decided, like, I'm going to have to act on this. This is what we have to do. We blame Canada for everything.
Now he has to find a new person or thing to, blame. But
Well, he's already shamed Mexico. He's got them paying for
That's
the
what
wall.
I'm saying. He's got to get
So, now
the
he's
other-
just going to
just go
up
north now.
Yeah.
But didn't it start just because he heard Trudeau say something on television at some point, and he was like, nope, that's not going to happen.
I think it was just
I'm the
that-
real G.
I think it was just that Trump doesn't like the band Rush. I think that's really all it comes down to, and he's taking it all out of Canada. I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Scott?
No, I was just saying that before we get into the whole Russia thing and all the other stuff, I think it's stupid of him to push this trade tariff and trade war fight. It's just the same thing with right now. He should just be riding this good economy, leave it alone, because we know we're at the end of this long-term bull run. So why do you feel the need to ruffle any feathers and mess anything up? Because as soon as the economy goes, there goes the rest of his base. So he should be leaving good enough alone and maybe just doing a little talk to his base, make them feel appeased. But by actually jeopardizing your closest allies in the G7 and trying to tear up trade deals is going to end up leading to a worldwide recession. And the moment that, you start messing with the economy, that's when your base goes away, and that's where whatever support that you think you have is gone. And if you even thought you were going to win re-election, you definitely won't. If any
Although he
economic
will
stuff is
spin
turned
it,
down.
and some people will believe it. He's like, I was doing that because that was the right thing to do. Yes, it'll be rough for a while, and
Right.
people have no idea that it will be rough, and things
Yes.
will get more expensive.
But
I
that's
hope
the-
everyone's prepared for
But
that.
but the problem is, as soon as it affects your pocketbook, and as soon as the unemployment rate goes up, that's when you're starting to affect everyday Americans and the people that were saying, "Oh no, he was supposed to come in and give us our jobs back and give us more money." And when that
it's
stuff goes
bad-
away,
bad
sure,
long term.
there'll still be 10, 15, 20% of people that will vote for if he killed people, if he whatever happens, and they're out and they have no job and no health care. But the bigger thing is you don't have any wiggle room here with your support. And as soon as that base starts to erode and the economy goes, that's where the base is going to give up on him and what he's doing. So it's stupid of him to even go this route, knowing that he's got a good economy right now that he's been handed, and he should just ride it until it doesn't until it
the
stops.
wheels fall off.
Yeah, because otherwise, if you mess it up, there
But
goes
he
your
thinks
support.
he's helping bring steel back, right? Because this is what
Right.
it started all these tariffs on steel and
Right.
aluminum, which in his mind is going to reopen our steel mills. Okay, so then how is this going to...
Well, I mean,
Play out.
how it plays out, it almost doesn't matter. To Scott's point, it's going to look like, look at what I'm trying to do.
Right.
In states like, I don't know, Pennsylvania, states that Hillary didn't win. I think that...
and states that will shift back to Democrats very easily because it was so close that there goes any of his
Right, so I think
support.
to show, like, this is an important issue to me, it's almost like if it doesn't work out, he's like, oh, look how hard I tried. but the Democrats who are in the minority, somehow he will blame them for it. We only have a few minutes. I wanted to get everybody. I'll give you 2 full minutes for the thing I know you want to talk about.
Which one, the marijuana one
the
or
other
the
one.
AT&T
The
one?
marijuana's evergreen, pun intended. Scott, what about President Trump calling for readmitting Russia to the G7? Do you think that that's in his programming? If you've ever seen The Manchurian Candidate,
Yes,
somebody
well,
flipped the Red Queen, and he was like,
yes, exactly.
Russia must be in the G7.
Well, that's exactly what I was saying. It's like it like you were saying earlier, Chelsea, about it's sort of like flipping for the other side, because people in his base be like, oh yeah, he's going after everyone, and we're number one, and we're doing what's best for America. But at the same time, for the people that feel like he was bought and sold by Russia, and then you start feeling like, okay, well, why are you going after our own closest friends in the G7, and then having the balls to ask for Russia to now be back in and make it the G8 again, which again leads you up to making you think like, oh yes, he's definitely a Russian puppet right there.
The funniest part is that Trump said that Crimea was Obama's fault. Obama allowed it.
Right, and didn't go
There's
in.
just so many things wrong with that sentence that if I have to explain it, I've lost hope in you.
And then it's too late now, and then it's there, and that Russia spent tons of money to fix it up.
Trump base supporters will say, well, yeah, maybe Russia should come back. They're a big economy. Well, yeah, but so is India, and he's not pushing for India to be brought into the fold. So
we know that he's in debt to Russia, and
well, that's what I'm saying. But that brings that back out there.
Controls him. So.
But it makes that more obvious now by seeing that, and for the people on the flip side of the base that are being like, oh look, there is a Russia connection here,
like
because
he keeps
pushing the Russia thing, and he's
Yeah.
fighting with our own closest allies like Canada, and yet he'll want to get Russia, and so it makes those people feel extra suspicious about what this motive is, and why would you be fighting with your very own closest allies and wanting to have Russia, that's the supposed enemy, back in the mix.
Well, I mean, I think the counter would be, well, because our allies have been taking advantage of us. And
Well, I think the one thing we could all agree on, Brooke, is that President Obama allowed Russia to take Crimea, and President Trump would have gotten in the way, because if there's anything he can do, he can take a stand to Russia, right? I mean,
Obviously.
this is all
Sure,
part of the
course.
plan for trying to get them back into the G7, which would then become the G8. But then what if they kick Trump out and then it's the G7? So you see, it just depends. What do the monogram towels look like? What are the pens? What's a stationery? So
I
maybe
think
they want
should
to
just
keep
call
it.
it the G unit, and let 50 Cent in, and
Yeah,
his
have
whole
to change.
crew.
I think this is the most sensible
And
thing
there'll
that
be
anyone
way better
has
music
said.
on the next
Yeah.
episode that
Of the
we
Trump
have.
report, there will
Yeah.
probably be terrible music next
But
week.
how?
What, 50 is so good.
Yeah, but I was
Oh
gonna
no,
say
but
how-
we'll see if there's an occasion for I call him Fitty, but that's fine. It's just the way I operate. What were we gonna say?
No, I
Scott?
was just saying how ironic that would be, that he's begging for Russia to come back in, they let them in, and they kick the
Yeah, but that's,
Yeah.
your friends in
That would
Russia
be
can come
crazy.
back, but you're out.
You're out. But maybe then you don't have to worry about changing all the pens and the monograms and everything else, because that's still the
Still
same.
G7.
So it's a good deal.
I hope he has a suitcase full of like G7, stationery, and I hope he's swung by the merch tent on the.
I hope there's a young rap group listening and they call themselves the
the
G7.
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 Yeah. Look,
And then be really socially, politically conscious and make like really good rap. That would be great.
to get both of those would be
It would be
interesting. I think.
way too
that's a
much.
lot.
I think, other than Public Enemy, I can't think of anybody who does it. All right, we have basically 4 minutes, Chelsea. So instead of asking your opinion on something that I think you've already stated, what is not the weed story? We just don't have time for it. But the other thing you wanted to talk about, because you're so
Always time
upset.
for weed.
There'll be time for weed later. But talk about what you were very upset about today. You were telling
Yeah,
me.
I walked into the studio kind of feeling like I'd been punched in the gut by this decision by a judge to allow AT&T and Time Warner to merge. It's this big $85 billion deal. AT&T said it needs to acquire Time Warner in order to be competitive in this new media landscape. And the DOJ is like, I was about to curse, but I'm like, I don't think that actually sounds. I mean, my ass, you do. I mean, this is just not good for competition. This is not good for consumers. And so the government put on a case arguing against it. And the judge had the option of siding with AT&T, siding with the government, or doing something kind of in between, which is kind of a unique thing in this kind of court, where the judge could have said, all right, fine, I'll let this go through, except there's all these things that have to happen. You have to sell off CNN, for example, or you have to do something so that you are not as large as a conglomerate as you would be if the two entities merged as they currently are. But the judge just said, no, AT&T, go for it. And I am like, oh, great. Well, there goes our cell phone prices. They're going to now, be a
Monopolize.
a colossal size entity that's going to control even more. AT&T is already massive. They already own
Right.
DirecTV, which I don't even know how well that is doing because not many people I know even have DirecTV anymore.
There's still a lot of people
there are.
that have television. I mean, here in this building is wired with multiple
DirecTV.
receivers.
Okay, well, then there you go.
And they have their own cable and their own.
So this is affects
telecommunications.
HBO, Warner Brothers, TBS, CNN. I mean, this is a massive story that we're not going to hear a lot about.
You mean fake news CNN, but yes, we do know what you're talking about.
I mean, there is a chance that the government will appeal it and that there will be a different decision that's made higher up. But for now, I am walking around in complete shock.
Well,
Yeah.
my question to you earlier was just sort of thinking that, I feel like one way to look at it is the courts are like, look, this isn't for us to decide. This is something that should have been handled, by the government. There should be legislation that prevents these things. All the things that broke up, Ma Bell into all the smaller phone companies that are now all AT&T and now AT&T.
Right.
And the fact that Comcast buys NBC and Disney's going to acquire Fox's movie studio, just all of these huge, massive things that aren't going to help competition in any way. But I think that there ought to be laws that prevent this, and the fact that there aren't, I don't know. I mean, judges are just like, well, who am I to step in?
The law, Brooke and I can tell you, the law says what it says, but man, is everything open to interpretation.
This is true, but the judicial system should not make decisions like this, and I agree with you completely, that kind of interpret, in other words, create new law. That is the role of the legislative system. So it's unfortunate, and I'm hopeful that maybe this might be potentially relooked at.
Yeah, because I was gonna say it ratchets up like you were just saying about the bid for Fox, and is it gonna be Disney? Is it gonna be Comcast? And Comcast is already huge because they took over NBC Universal and their theme park. So you start like gobbling up all these things. The next thing you know, you have 2 or 3 companies like airlines that and a lot of these other places that then can charge whatever they want, do whatever they want because they have nobody that they have to listen
this
to.
doesn't just affect us because I
No.
mean we're interested in this. We live in and around Hollywood. You think that that's why we care about this? No, but really this has everything to do with cell phone access, internet,
Internet.
It's
Everything.
much larger than it's just a couple of media companies getting together, and then throw on top of it the fact that net neutrality is officially dead. We should be mourning it, but we're too excited over this G7 unit stuff and this
and the
Singapore
Fluff Summit.
that it kind of died almost without a whimper. I mean, I haven't heard anybody talk about it. So we are in a new day, and it has nothing to do with North Korea.
No, I know.
Well, no, except for the fact that, one thing you can do is you can sort of just unplug from all these things, and you'll be just like a North Korean. You won't have a cell phone, you won't have cable
We might
service.
be getting to
We
that
might be
point.
getting to that point
with
anyways.
the lack
with
of net neutrality.
Yes, exactly, and
that's
the
what I'm
mergers.
saying, yeah. Anyway, well, thanks to all for a spirited conversation as always, and we appreciate everybody in the chat. Somebody threw out the name of De La Soul. Thank you for that. In any case, we are out of time, but we will be back next Tuesday at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. Until then, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDNZ. Chelsea, where do people find you?
At Chelsea Galicia.
And Brooke, where do people find you?
Brooke Solis TV.
And Scott.
On Twitter at SMan80.
All right, thanks so much, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.